Now, with the Pakistani public being no stranger to flood devastation for the second year in a row, we have invited a young NGO which set up just last year but have already contributed to raising not only awareness but also the much needed funds that would go in rehabilitation of flood affectees. Please welcome President of Next Generation Pakistan NGP, Bakhtawar Soofi, along with co-member Jaffar. They are proponents of the NGP slogan, "Let's change tomorrow, let's begin today." Very nice. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you? Good to have you here.
Very well, thank you.
Great project, I must say. And you know, we keep urging the people to do more, and young people especially. And you guys are so young. How did this come about?
This actually started back in June 2010 when a group of young students from HSN, we decided and we noticed that a lot of people in our school were not happy with the country and they were disillusioned with Pakistan. And you know, you have to understand that all of us belong to the upper class of Pakistan, the upper middle income groups. And what was really bothering the five of us, the people who actually went on to make NGP, was that we are the ones who have all the resources, and despite the fact that we belong to the upper income groups in Pakistan, we are the ones who are most disillusioned about this country.
Absolutely.
So we decided that it is high time that people and students like us who belong from the upper class of society should stand up, realize our responsibility and do something for the country and give back to the...
I must say that's a very interesting realization, because you know, at the age that you both seem to be in, and millions of Pakistanis of this age group, they have other things on mind.
Absolutely.
You know, they have their studies on mind and where they have to go abroad and, you know, further study and whether they want to come back or not, and so on and so forth. They don't really think that, okay, we have to stay here or we have to make things better and this is our responsibility. So I must say, you know, great endeavor there. Like-minded people, how many of you are there? Jaffar,
there are about around 20 to 30 of us. Although we have a small group, we've still achieved a lot in the amount of time that we have. But the thing is that you have to identify your responsibilities and sort out your priorities. For example, studies, you definitely raise the correct point, that it should be every person's priority, every student's priority. But then again, you have to reach a balance between studies as well as your other responsibilities.
Absolutely.
So that together, you know, you're progressing towards many goals at the same time.
Okay, that's interesting. Now I understand this was set up in 2010.
Yeah.
That was last year, and this was right before the floods. Was floods actually the triggering point?
No, not exactly. As I just told you what the background was, we were initially set up to focus more on education.
Okay.
Right. And right after we were established in June, in August, the floods hit Pakistan, and the scale of devastation was so huge that we decided that we must expand our aim beyond education and focus more on floods.
That was more timely anyway.
Exactly. So we were basically dragged into flood relief and flood rehabilitation.
I understand that you started from Lahore and already that you managed to gather millions of rupees. Please tell us about that. How do you convince, how do young people, you know, and this is all as much to inspire other young people who are watching us right now, how do you guys go about and making people believe that you are doing this for the right cause?
I think this is one of the difficult problems that we face because we are always young and people are less willing to give it to us. But there are generally people who, just as a token of encouragement or appreciation, give us some money. And what we did last year and what we did again this year for Sindh was that we set up a camp at the Liberty Roundabout.
Okay.
And this was once again the first camp over here. And we set up a 3-day camp from 19th to the 21st of September. We would start at 10 in the morning and stay there till 5. We had to wrap up early because of dengue and, you know, all the mosquitoes flying around. So we would then call up volunteers at our Liberty camp, which served as, you can say, a center stage of our entire campaign. And when volunteers would come over there, we would hand them over a donation box, give them a flyer and a poster, and just give them a very quick and a brief introduction about what NGP was. So in case if people are asking them where the money is going, what is NGP, how do you plan to spend this, so they have an idea and they can tell people where the money will be spent. We would then form groups of say 3 to 5 volunteers and send them to places like Al Fatah, or outside Haji Karim Baksh or Jalalson's or the MMR.
Where you know that the upper crust wealthy,
Absolutely.
the people who can actually spare
This
money.
year actually we realized that there was not much traffic at the Liberty roundabout itself. Last year we restricted ourselves to the roundabout itself, and people were so willing to give money that they would actually stop by and put money in our boxes. But this year this was not happening at the Liberty roundabout, so we had to expand. We had to send contingents of volunteers to different places in Lahore. So that's how it basically works.
So
out.
you both, or the organization itself, because I'm sure there are other like-minded people like you were concentrating on monetary donations, or you were also, looking into other, because there are medications we are talking about, there is food, there are those people, flood affectees, they have lost everything basically. So what all were you looking at?
Initially we've started off asking people to give us money, because the problem is that if we buy shelter from Lahore, then we have a large transportation cost from transferring it from Lahore all the way down to Sindh.
True.
But again, this is one of the problems, and the irony in Pakistan is that in Karachi and in Hyderabad, places which are closer to Sindh, the prices of shelter, the prices of medicines are inflated. People are selling them at higher prices, which means that we are now caught up between either Lahore, buying the supplies from Lahore or from Karachi. But at the end of the day, we have calculated that if we buy these goods, even at an inflated price from Karachi or from Hyderabad, it was cheaper when we add the transportation cost to it.
All right, interesting. So funds, obviously money-wise, was what you were looking at. Now, and I'm glad you guys are here, because I often wonder, of course there have been, even last year, this year less, but last year more, I saw that, in every signal that you would stand, there would be people, collecting something for this cause. Do the rich give more freely, or is it just, you have expectation from a big car, it's passing by, you would expect them to really dish out some bigger chunk of money, and not so from a little car or even a motorbike or something. I wonder what your experience has been like.
Generally, we do expect more from the bigger cars, as you just said, but the ground reality is quite different. More or less, the people in the bigger cars, they're indifferent, they won't even give a second glance to you when you're standing there in the heat with your posters and with your flyers. But there are exceptions always, because there have been people who have been helping us greatly. For example, last year I remember at the camp there was this a poor man who came up to us on a cycle. He had 3 or 4 kids with him, and he's donating money, so that's something that gives us a lot of motivation.
Of course.
So there's always exceptions.
So all give, but I mean your expectations also vary. Okay, so that's interesting, and I want you to listen to their experience as well, because we keep on talking to our viewers and urging them to give, and there are so many ways to give. I mean, sometimes we just keep thinking, oh, reliable kaun si jagah hai aur kahan jaake de. You give from the heart, you can give anywhere, because you have to basically at the end of the day trust, but then trust is a big element. Does anybody come up to you and ask you, okay, do you have an audit for all this? Because we are talking about millions of rupees. Absolutely. You guys managed to raise millions of rupees. How do you make sure that it actually, each and every penny goes where it deserves to go?
We actually have on ground right now 3 or 4 different people. One of them is in District Badin, then there's Chaudhary Ahmed Riaz, who's the General Secretary of PIPRO, that's an organization. He just called me last night. So we are coordinating with them on ground with 3 or 4 different people as to what is needed where and what exactly are the requirements over there. So we usually talk to them every second or every third night and get feedback as to what is needed over there. Plus, as far as money is concerned, we have Yusufullah Tahir, who's managing all the finances of the organization, since his father is a banker. So it really helps us in making sure that the money is in the bank. Then we are following all the proper procedures in withdrawing it, and then making sure that we make all the records of where the money is being spent, what is being bought, and so on and so forth.
Okay, I understand that you both are from HSN?
No.
No, Bakhtawar is from HSN, I'm from SCANS.
Okay, I'm glad then, because that is what I wanted to know, that did you involve other, organizations, schools?
Absolutely. We have a system of representatives at the NGO itself, where we appoint, say for instance, 2 or 3 people per school, and they are responsible for representing our organization in their school. So for instance, if there is a charity drive, which we are just starting right now for the Sindh flood affectees, we give all the representatives who are part of the team a booklet, and we tell them to start a charity drive in the school. So this is how we are spreading in
Your
Lahore.
network, I would say.
Absolutely, and this is mostly through Facebook. And I'd just also like to take this opportunity to appreciate all the efforts put in by the team this year. We initially started off and we had planned to have 2-hour shifts each for every single person. But every single team member gave in more than those 2 hours. And this shows the level of commitment and the level of dedication that the youngsters showed this year for Sindh.
Absolutely, very interesting. Now you mentioned a charity drive. Please do tell us so that we can all participate in it if we want to.
Basically, since the purpose of the organization is to be youth-based and driven, and since it's entirely driven by the youth, the idea is to make sure that we involve the youth as much as we can. Now, it's very easy for me and for Jaffar to go to our homes and tell our parents to donate 50,000 rupees or 100,000 rupees. That's not a problem for all of us. For all the 30 to 40 people in our team that I'm talking about who cannot come here. But again, the idea is not to, just sit back home and ask your parents to donate. The idea is to go on the street, to do something yourself, to work for it, to strive for it. So now the idea is, since the schools are opening after the dengue 10-day break, we are planning that we will be distributing booklets to our team members, to NGP representatives, who will then start off charity drives in their respective schools.
Okay, when somebody does something like this, and you set up this organization and you get like-minded people in, you also reap the rewards, or I would say fruit of your labor as well, because you feel that sense of achievement that you have been able to help somebody. What more recognition do you expect? Are you expecting some kind of outside help, maybe from the state or maybe from a bigger NGO to pick you up, maybe from the UN? I don't know how, but would you like to join hands with something even bigger than what you're doing?
I think over and above recognition, it's more of our responsibility as citizens of Pakistan. And I think all that we are doing, all the team NGP is doing, is fulfilling our responsibility towards the country and giving back to the community, because we are the ones who are rich right now. So it's our responsibility and it's our duty as citizens of Pakistan to do it. One of the sad things that we noticed, and Jaffar was telling me about because he was at Al-Fatah on the third day for like 4 or 5 hours, was that people were coming up to us and saying that the floods are in Sindh, thus there is no responsibility and we should not be collecting funds
as if Sindh is not like a
absolutely, this is
a
wrong.
part of
this is
us,
a wrong approach that people are taking, because Sindh is as much as part of Pakistan as Punjab.
Absolutely.
And it is our responsibility as Pakistanis. We are Pakistanis first. And I think this is a wrong perception that's taking place in the mind of the general people.
I absolutely am totally inspired by this, the fact that you people are so dedicated, and also somebody coming up to you to you and saying that ye to Sindh mein ho raha hai and why should we do it here. I'm glad that you realize, and I'm wondering, if it is your upbringing, because you are very casual enough to also admit that, okay, fine, we are rich, but we don't, we weren't born that way or something, we don't deserve it necessarily. It is our duty to help other people as well. So I like that realization that you understand that you are privileged, but now you have to go beyond it as well. Now I understand that you guys have been, in contact with your people right at the center of where the floods are happening. What exactly, Jaffar, I'll ask you, what exactly is required on the ground? We were talking to a reporter and he was telling us medicines was one thing, but what all is required?
Essentially, what we understand right now, the ground realities are that people do not have shelter. So that's basically what we're focusing on. Acquiring tents and providing those people with shelter, because as we understand, as the people on the ground are telling us, that is what is required right now.
Okay, so shelter is one.
Medicines, because there are a lot of skin diseases.
Because we were just telling people about that.
Everyone's been seeing this on television as well. And then there's this clothing requirement, and more importantly, quilts. Quilts and kumbals are needed right now because
and of course,
winter is setting in.
I wonder where, we take things so for granted, because I did not even realize that it's going to get very cold very soon, and these people are not going to, it's not going to overnight they are not going to get anything, the shelter bhi mil gaya or heaters bhi mil gaya, something like that. That is not going to happen. What next for this? I doubt if this is, you know, a commitment that you are going to let go maybe next year. I think that you are going to, it seems to me as if that you are going to stay with it as well. What next? I hope that you will not maybe, you know, just wait for disasters to happen and go on. Like you started off with something else.
Yeah, our plan next, we have 2 or 3 different options. We actually held a fundraiser this year to celebrate our first anniversary on the 25th of June. And we had planned to spend the money that we raise into the renovation of a school. Again, the idea is to follow a do-it-yourself approach, which means we will not be hiring labor to paint the school. We will be doing it ourselves, because, you know, NGP is all about doing it yourself.
Of course.
So the idea is to renovate a school, and we're still in the process of identifying a school which we can renovate. Other than that, we have held talks. One of our team members has held talks with Master Yu, who's a teacher in Islamabad,
of course,
who has been teaching for
very
I think 20 to 25 years.
Area.
Yes, absolutely. And he just teaches children in the slums. So we are planning a trip to go over there and help him in any form we can.
Of course, and that would also inspire, you know, maybe like-minded people in Islamabad. So you're moving out of, I guess, the safe vicinity of Lahore, because you are a Lahori, so you would know, you know, the kind of response that people would have. Girls also participate with you, you know, because I can understand, you know, guys have a mind of their own, and they can actually have the privilege of, or the freedom to just go out and help out if they want to.
A lot of people think, and initially we had this problem that there were not a lot of girls that were showing up, but this year, surprisingly, and you would be surprised to know that there were more girls than boys in the organization, and more girls volunteering to come and sit at the camp. And we were not telling them to stand with a chart on the Liberty Roundabout. They were not sitting at the camp itself. They were standing on the road holding a chart in the heat. So I think this is a good change that has come over the last 1 year or so. That girls are coming up, showing on camp, and volunteering themselves to stand on the road itself.
Absolutely, and I'm sure they also realize that the people would know that this is to look beyond them and look at the cause.
Absolutely.
At exactly what they are doing. So I think that would be something interesting. And again, the drive is on, because we are going to be putting all, by the way, the information on our Facebook page. Yeah. When is that that charity drive that you're talking about?
The charity drive starts in next week, about Monday.
Okay.
We have a meeting.
Facebook is the way that you communicate with, you know,
yes,
the rest
Facebook is actually the way in which people can actually also volunteer for us, and we give all the updates on our Facebook page. And the address is simple: www.facebook.com/nextgenpakistan. We can't keep generation because of the word limit. So it's Next Gen Pakistan. We have all the updates over there, and we have also got an Apply Now tab for all those who want to apply as a representative, who want to join our organization. They can fill out the form over there.
In fact, I was going through that yesterday as well when I knew that they were coming. So I saw that we are going to put it up on our own Facebook page as well. Again, one thing, you know, that there's this international terminology, I would say, which was coined a couple of years back and has become very prominent these days as well, about how, exactly, thank you very much, about how, you know, people have stopped, you know, wanting or maybe feeling the need to help Pakistan. Because again, in the introduction today also, I was saying that we have had millions and billions of dollars in aid to Pakistan, and sometimes we really don't see where it all goes. Do you see that kind of donor fatigue, that coined terminology, you know, amongst our own people as well?
Generally speaking, donor fatigue is something that we see because, for example, last year when I was at the Liberty camps, it was very obvious to see that people were very generous. They knew about the conditions in Pakistan, they knew about the severity of the floods. And this year there was a marked difference because, as Bakhtawar said, last year we concentrated at gathering funds from the Liberty camp. But this year we had to actually send our contingents around to different centers where people usually moved around. So this year people asked more questions, people were generally less willing to donate. They were asking more questions.
Until they were convinced where
Until they were convinced that our cause was a legitimate one and they were convinced of our authenticity. So, for example, that Bakhtawar already said that there was this one man, he had a personal argument with me. That he said that you're doing something for Sindh. And he said that I personally believe I am a Punjabi first and then a Pakistani. So you can see that a negative aspect exists there, but overall the people are very generous. They still donated once their questions were answered generally.
Okay, but now Facebook obviously has a global outreach. Now Pakistanis abroad, anybody contacting you to maybe help out as well? Because abroad also Pakistanis tend to, find the more authentic ways of trying to help the people where they know that this will go to the right place.
Generally, fundraising from abroad is obviously much easier because of the exchange rates, right? If you raise $1 or $10, it's easier to raise $10 as compared to raising 80 or
exactly, and
100
that
rupees over here.
translated, you would make almost like
Yeah,
1,000
we have our friends, and we just started off this with friends because obviously we want trusted people over there who are raising money on our behalf. So we have friends who are in Canada, who are in UK, and who are in the US, who are raising funds in their respective universities by organizing charity dinners with their Pakistan student union over there, and they are then sending us the money back into our bank account in Pakistan over here.
Because that is happening as well.
Yes.
My final question to you now, with the general state of affairs in Pakistan and the way the world also perceives Pakistan, whether that is true or not, that's besides the point. How does the young generation feel about, I understand that you both and 30, 40, 50 odd people like you, which is really a drop in the ocean if you look at millions of Pakistanis. How do you feel about the country and whether you want to do more for it, you have hopes for it, you think that you would actually get something in return as well, eventually. How do you feel? What is your state of mind right now regarding what is happening in the country?
I think there's this, if you give me, allow me 2 or 3 minutes, I'd just like to draw a certain timeline over here. Back in 2007 or in 2008, there was a lot of frustration and disillusionment with the way the country was progressing because there were a lot of bomb blasts and, there was inflation and the economy was going down. But then this frustration gradually, as it increased, it transformed into a willpower and a determination to do something, basically. This gave way to determination.
You feel that?
Yes. And this is something I'm talking through experience. This is something that I underwent, and probably this is something Jaffar underwent and the rest of the team too, because at a certain point we were disillusioned with the way the country was progressing. But after a certain point we decided that, this country cannot go on like this, and we have to do something, and therefore we decided to stand up and take this initiative.
So basically, let the politicians and the decision makers and do whatever they have to, but it is our responsibility to maybe, contribute something.
If the government is failing in its responsibilities, then obviously it falls back to the individuals. And it's our responsibility, as I previously said, as Pakistanis to do and give back to the community.
Absolutely.
Especially when we belong to this class of society.
I'm glad that you added that part in it, because usually, most of the time, this is the class of society which actually forgets, tends to ignore the fact, because they are more interested, in their vacations and everything. I'm very glad that you both came here, very inspiring, and I hope that people, watching us, we keep talking about ways and means of going about and helping other people, be it in flood situations or any other way. If you have a will, if you have a desire, if you have a passion, you have a realization to do something, you can do it. No problem. You will find like-minded people who will be willing to help. Thank you once again for coming here and sharing your work with us. We are going to take a very short break, and we'll catch you after that. Yeah.